this is Lynn Gillette, President of the Silicon Valley Chapter. Topic of free library resources for investors. Russell Malley will be doing part of the presentation, and Mary and Michael will do the second part.
Hello, my name is Russell Malley. I'm currently President of the Silicon Valley Chapter of Better Investing. And our Vice President right now is Marion Michelle, who's going to be co-hosting this with us. You see our contact information there. And let's give you a little brief view of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to do these quick introductions. We're going to talk about the Santa Clara County Library System. That's the library system. And we're going to be concentrating on those red dots there. These are resources available through the library. I'm going to be talking about Standard & Poor's Net Advantage. Marion will be covering Morningstar. And then I'm going to be doing Value Line, and I'll finish up with a few other resources and how you can get access to this information through the library. Okay, so a disclaimer. This is standard Better Investing disclaimer. If we talk about stocks, it's for educational purposes only. That's the main thing. We want to make sure you don't think we're recommending particular stocks. Okay, so introductions. Better Investing, like Lynn Gillette said, is a sort of a sister organization, sort of the same goals. It's a 501c3 educational nonprofit. It was established in 1951. It's based in Michigan. We have local chapters like AAII does throughout the United States. The local chapters are run by volunteers. We're not paid. We have to sign a particular code of conduct to become volunteers, which includes we can't advertise our own services that we get paid for during Better Investing presentations. And it provides tools and resources for investment clubs and individual investors. That's our goal. Okay, so here's the Santa Clara Library System is 8 branches. They're listed here. You can see street addresses. I've given the URL for finding the street addresses. And there's the main, at the bottom, online services, the main library source. Each of the branches has their own individual website too. So I tend to use the Morgan Hill one. So I have that bookmarked, the Morgan Hill. And when you go to the main branch, you see something like this. So we're going to start with Standard & Poor's. So you go to the library, you have to sign in. You click on that, they have a menu bar across the top, and you want to go to that online library 24/7. That's where you'll find a list of subjects, and you want to pick out business and investing subjects. And when you do that, you get to this page. Now this is sort of Morningstar, Standard & Poor's, and Value Line. I use those the most, so they show up at the top for me. If you scroll down farther, you'll see other resources, and we'll get to those later. So you just click on Standard & Poor's Net Advantage. You will have to sign in. You have to have a library card to be able to do that. We'll get to how you get a library card at the end. So you put that in, and you end up here. This is the Standard & Poor's main landing page. You see across the top, they have a whole list of things you can do. We're going to be concentrating more on companies and research and maybe industry research. So if you're looking for a company, you want to click on that research button and put in oops, I want to show it out here. In their search thing, put in a ticker symbol, have it search. And this is what you'll get. I put in Apple for this. And you can see you have weekly research reports. And you get, if you go over off to the side down there, you'll see that you can get them in PDF format. And they tell you how long they are. These are individual ones on individual companies. This one's 9 pages long. So rather detailed every weekly on particular companies. it's not advancing where I want it to. Okay, now the next thing you can go on research, type in the ticker symbol, click the search button. I just told you this, click on the PDF version, and this is the report that you get. This is the old Standard & Poor's report. Now they've recently updated their website. It used to be fairly hard to get when they redid it. It was a little more difficult to get to these reports when they did it, but they've redone it, and it's made it a little easier to look at. So here's those reports. Now, other things that Standard & Poor's is known for are industry surveys. And it's not exactly how you would think. You would think you might want to go to industry surveys, but it's easier to get to them in the going to markets. So you go to the markets option, and then down to industry surveys down at the bottom. All right, hover over the markets, click on the surveys. The other way to do it, you can click on the markets and go to surveys on the menu bar on the left column. So those are the ways you can get to the industry surveys. And this is what you get, the big long survey. These are 40, 50, 60 pages long. So if you want detailed information on an industry, this is where you can get it. Now here's an important item. S&P, Morningstar, and Value Line have slightly different definitions of an industry. So if you want to be an industry, make sure you use the same one for each time. So if you're looking at a value line and you want to know about the industry, it's probably better to look at the value line industry thing, or try to figure out what the corresponding S&P industry is that corresponds to the value line industry. So they have slightly different definitions of what they do it, and they will put different companies in different, will put the same company in different industries. So you have to look at what source you're using there. Okay. So it has a lot of other possible information, but I found that that's really not as quite so easy to find. You can see they have mutual funds, fixed incomes, and normally when you click on one of those that I have outlined in red, you get a search bar that shows up at the bottom, and you have to put it in the information, which one of those you're finding again. Now, the one thing that does show up quite easily, if you click on the Outlook, you will get the Outlook ones right away, rather than putting in where that save search is. Let me highlight that for you. If you put these other things in, you end up here, and you have to use that drop-down menu to find it again, what you really want. The exception is for the Outlook. This comes in Outlook right away, and it generates the Outlook pages right away. And you can see there, it looks like they're done about weekly outlooks for the market in general, with the PDF version at the end. You can look at the PDF version. And here's one of those Outlook surveys. Okay, and that takes us to Marion. So Marion, you can take over from here.
I'm going to cover very fast. I'm going to speed talk my way through these topics, the Morningstar login and site, give you a glimpse of stocks. There are 936 full reports. Key features of the reports if you have an individual stock in mind, or stock screening if you're looking for ideas. The same thing for mutual funds, where they have many more full reports, and for ETFs, where they have many fewer full reports. So here's the login information for Morningstar. Instead of picking, when you go to business and investing, instead of picking Standard & Poor's, of course you'll pick Morningstar, and you'll have to log in with your library card number. This is the overview of the Morningstar site. Okay, 8 blocks of information up here. All of them are available to you to explore except for portfolio, because the library doesn't maintain your portfolios for you. I'm going to talk about primarily these 3, companies, funds, and ETFs, and I'll say a bit about these 2, help and newsletters, very briefly. I'll go into somewhat more display detail here. There are stocks, screens, 8 tabs of information, 5 different screens. Funds have 8 categories of information. These are them, 6 screens. ETFs, 7 categories, and 3 screens. Okay, so here's the Morningstar main block, and I'm going to focus here, as I said, but I want to say a couple of words about these. Help and education is, for example, where you would find Julie Jason's information about investing that she was referencing. She kept talking about Morningstar. You would go into this tab here, which also contains guides on how to use the Morningstar pieces. It has the glossary. It has classes you can take with little quizzes at the end, and it has Zoom seminars that you can subscribe to. Newsletters, the library actually makes all 4 of Morningstar's newsletters available to you online. Each of these newsletters has like an anchor portfolio that it tracks and commentary every month on updates and contents of the portfolios. So that might be a great source of ideas for you. Okay, if you want to find a particular stock, you go into the Morningstar main bar, click on companies, and enter a ticker over here. I want to say a word first about star ratings for Morningstar. This is how they indicate for stocks what the analyst's opinion is of the stock going forward. For stocks, stars are a forward-looking rating, and I emphasize this because for funds and ETFs, the stars are actually performance-rated only or backward-looking. But here, the Morningstar analyst is going to take a leap here and make a prediction into the future. So stars for stocks are forward-looking. The stars are calculated daily, depending on where the price of the stock is. So the percentage of stocks receiving a particular star fluctuates daily. 5 stars is what they consider what we would say is their buy position. This rating would encourage you to overweight this company. 3 is the neutral position, and 1 is the you might want to start selling, thinking about selling indicator. So here's a brief graph of their methodology. They talk about their moat, the company's moat. Does it have one? In other words, how well is it protected from competition coming in from the outside? Talks about the management of the company or the stewardship, calculates a fair value, determines the uncertainty of its fair value, and comes up with a rating for stocks. All of this is detailed in much more depth in their help and education tab. So here's what you get on the main menu for stocks. Again, you've got all of these choices up here. And I don't normally retype everything from a slide above, but for some reason Morningstar uses faint gray lettering all throughout its site. So I did, as a precaution, retype some things. Here's the first block of information on the Quote tab. You get all of this information over here, which basically gives you price and volume information for currently, the yield, the style according to where Morningstar places it in its style world, common ratios, including forward PE. The next slide I'll go to will show you the chart, which is expandable, that shows on the main screen the current price, whether it's going up or down in dollars and cents and percentages. And the third thing I'll talk about fast is key ratios, which is one of my favorite parts of the site. Here's what you get when you first click on the chart. This is infinitely conformable to anything you like virtually. This is the way I display things. You can have different displays. It comes up on the 1 day mark, but you can expand this out to show prices for the maximum amount of time that the company's been public. You can even add comparisons, stock comparisons to the mix. You can add technical indicators, all kinds of things here. This is very worthwhile exploring. Key ratios, as I said, is one of my favorite parts of the Quote tab. You're on Quote, you click on Key Ratios. It gives you some important ratios here, but I like this full data down here. Click on that part. When you do, you get this screen. Scroll down to the bottom of your next screen, and for profitability, growth, cash flow, financial health, and efficiency, you get a full page of ratios to look at. I think this is great. It gives me a quick snapshot on the financial health of a company. Here's the Analysis tab. Okay, this is very important when you have an analyst report, or even if you don't. You know you have an analyst report when it says, here's the analyst name. Okay, so the Analyst tab, when you start off, gives you certain things. It tells you what Morningstar's fair value is for the company right now, in their opinion. This was Microsoft, and when I did this, they had assigned a $235 fair value to it. I don't know what it is today. And it shows you the last close, so you can see it's below fair value. Then it gives you the star rating, which is this, the current star rating. It was at 3 stars then. So you can see there's a certain amount of range in here for the 3 stars or whatever stars you're dealing with. Interestingly, it gives you the 1 star or the sell price, where should you start thinking about selling, and the 5-star price, where might you want to think about buying, okay, when it gets down to 164. Gives you the moat, which they say for Microsoft is wide and stable, and they say Microsoft has exemplary stewardship. Okay, I'm going to take a quick look with you at bulls and bears. Click on this tab, and then I'll return to just a quick summary of what the full analysis covers. So here's the bulls and bears say in the Analysis tab. A lot of people really like this. No matter what the company, they give you 3 positives and 3 potential negatives. Doesn't matter what the company is, if there's a full report. And these are the categories that the analyst covers when there's a full analyst report. This can go on for pages. They explain if there's a moat and why they think there's a moat, all that kind of stuff. What's the business strategy? This is why the analyst is willing to take a risky thing and make a prediction in terms of where the company's going in the future. They evaluate all of this. If there is no analyst report, you're going to get, instead of the name of the analyst, you're going to get this little blurb here, which explains how the heck they can provide you with all the information they're going to provide you with about this company when there's no analyst evaluating it. So they explain they statistically match things up to come up with calculated moats, fair values, and uncertainty ratings. And when there's no analyst report, you still get all of this other stuff. This tab is mainly to show you wherever you are in Morningstar, look for something you can click on, customize, expand. Okay, this is the Operating Performance tab, and when you click on this, a whole lot more information comes down below. You can customize this price to fair value chart by going from advanced to basic view, logarithmic to linear. For the income statement, you can click and get the full income statement, not just this chart. The last tab I want to mention for stocks, for individual stocks, is the profile. This is important for several reasons. It tells you the sector and industry that Morningstar is placing this stock in, gives you the most recent earnings and the fiscal year end, tells you again how Morningstar is classifying the stock, and gives you a business profile, very brief, kind of like the value line business profile that you see on a Morningstar report, if you're familiar with that. So those those slides were for, if you know what you're looking for, which company you're looking for. If you don't know, if you don't have something in mind, here's some ideas for you. Okay, if you're good with screening, building a screen, you want to go to this tab here. You want to go right to the screener. If you want to look at some canned screens, some built-in screens, Morningstar has those. And then it has 3 other choices over here for favorites, for the list of analyst reports, and for international stocks. So if you want to build your own screen, I say you've got 50 plus items. It's probably closer to 70 or 80, organized in 8 different categories of data. So, I mean, if you really like building screens, this one is for you. Me personally, I don't, but many people do. So this might be your cup of tea here. If you want to look at Morningstar's built-in stock screens, they've got 9 of them here, listed here. When you click on one of them, you get a brief description over here of what it is. Here's the stock favorites screen with all these columns are sortable, which is great. And you've got 6 different views of the favorite screen. You can sort on all of these things. This happens to be the snapshot view. Okay. Here's the stock analyst report list. So you've got, you can sort this on date of the report, on market cap, sector, industry, or stock name. You can do this by alphabet or these columns I just mentioned. So here we are on mutual funds. As I said, I'm whipping through this very fast just to whet your appetite here to go back in and look at these things. So go back to the main header here, click on funds, put in a fund name, a fund ticker. Now, remember I said that ratings for stocks are forward-looking. For funds and ETFs, they're backward-looking measures of historical performance, strictly quantitative, no analyst input or opinion about the future, calculated once a month, and there's a fixed distribution of stars. And here is the place where I found this information down here if you want to go directly to where I was looking within Morningstar. They also, for funds and ETFs, give some of them gold, silver, and bronze medals, and you can sort and search on those. If they are above their net of fee alpha relative to the median. If they're not that, then they get a neutral or a negative rating. This is in addition to stars. And again, this is backward looking. Mutual fund quote tab. You remember there was a stock quote tab? Well, here's the mutual fund tab. Okay, with a lot of information on it. My general place I go first is status. Is this an open or a closed mutual fund? Because I once spent 2 hours persuading myself to buy a mutual fund, only to discover it was closed. So that's the primary information for me these days, but you can see the other types of information, fees, minimum investment, type of fund according to Morningstar. This one was a larger blend, yield, all kinds of things, metal rating. If you want the analyst report, you know there is one because you have this picture and the name over here. If you want the investment objective, click on this box over here. And the analyst is going to go through these categories of information. And again, this can run for pages and pages, screen pages. There's a chart, an interactive chart, and you can see that by numbers, or you can go into the chart and see the different possibilities there for you. Here are mutual fund risk and volatility measures. Here's risk versus category, return versus category, statistical measures of risk and volatility, all that kind of thing on the risk volatility tab. The portfolio section, you can actually look down into the portfolio. This view gives you the fund versus the category, and if there's a matching index, you get that. They also give you a sustainability rating for the fund, which is getting very popular these days among younger people. It rates the fund according to its adherence to environmental, social, and fund governance measurements. You can see this one was it average on environmental and social issues. and below average on governance. So you might want to look for something better. And you can go down into the mutual fund portfolio holdings, although not very far. This screen used to be sortable on column headers, and it no longer is. And that is a real backward step for Morningstar. But in my opinion, but still, you can see the number of holdings. You can see the reported turnover, two important measures. The contents are organized by portfolio weight. You can see what's been going on lately. And you can see if it's got a moat or what the stars are. And you can click for more holdings. So you can go down this 500 stock list. It would be arduous. I would rather sort, and of course I can't. Fund screens, some parallels here with stock screens. If you don't have a particular fund in mind, you probably want to go to the screeners. Here's where you can build your own screen, just as you did for for stocks. Here are the Morningstar canned screens down here. I listed them out for you. And again, you can go, this is the build it yourself screener. There's a fund favorite screen, analyst report screen, international funds, just as there are for stocks. There's a new one here. You can actually compare two funds side by side, and I'll show you that in the next slide. There is a choice up here called most similar fund choice, which sounds great, except it's not active at this time. Hopefully it'll come back or be added. Here's the screen for adding two different mutual fund tickers. You can create a PDF or view the report. And here's an example of two different funds side by side. This goes on for pages, laying out side by side issues that are compared. Now off to ETFs real fast. Same approach as I took to stocks and funds. Go back to ETFs up at the top of the Morningstar site. Put in a ticker. That will take you to the ETF Quote Tab. Again, very similar to the fund layout. There's no such thing as a closed ETF, so that's not an issue for you. But it gives you a lot of basic information here, expense, net asset value, spreads on bid and ask, and so forth. And it gives you a chart, which of course is expandable. You would go to the full chart to get more information. If you do not have a particular ETF in mind and you're looking for ideas, you can go to the screens for ETFs and you have fewer choices. I put all the screening choices for all three sets of securities here so you could compare. There is a build-it-yourself screener for ETFs, much less robust than the one for stocks and mutual funds. I'll show it to you in a sec. They do have a list of analyst reports you can sort on. They have a screen by trading volume, which I think is mislabeled. I think it should actually be called a performance screen because you can sort on performance. They list a quick rank screen, which I used to use a lot, but it seems to be inactive at the moment. Morningstar is one of those sites that's always in transition and improving and sorting for new material, new displays. This is the basic screener. These are the only categories you can choose from. You don't have to choose them all. You can choose any combination, but you have only 8 choices for screening for mutual funds, ETFs. Here's what you're familiar with by now, the analyst report screen for ETFs. And here's the trading volume screen. I call it the return screen because as you can see, you can sort on 3-year, 1-year, 3-month return. What I like to do is to set something on 3-year and scroll down to see how much the 1-year and 3-month returns are in a reasonable distance of the 3-year return. So in summary, went very fast, mainly to whet your appetite to go back in. I covered very quickly stocks. You've got 11 categories, a lot of drill down layers with charts and data, 5 different screens. Same kind of thing for mutual funds and for ETFs. And that kind of sums it up for me. I got any questions, Russell?
Have Morningstar's rating any correlations to stock future performance?
That's a good question. In the past, it's had relatively good, but I did not search for that, and I did not accidentally find it anywhere in their material. I think you should go back to Help and Education screen and look at their guides. If they are going to release that information, they would have put it into the guide portion of that. So scroll through quickly and see if they report on themselves.
So now we're going to go over how to access the value line resources. And it's the same as for the others. You have to go to the online library, click Business and Investing, click on Value Line. And if you're not sure about using Value Line, you can get access to instructions here. So they have an instructional PDF you can get to. Right, and this is the home page when you get onto Value Line. Right. Now, if you want to do about a particular company, you want to click on that Browse Research button. And it gives you this page, and you put in your ticker symbol. I've done this one, TPI Composites. And one thing I'm going to point out here, you notice it's telling you down here, it's highlighted institutional. That's just telling you that you're using an institution's access rather than personal access. Right, from there, oops, I don't want to do those anymore. We move on. And this is what you'll get when you do the browse search. This is the online report. This is updated daily. Now, most of the stuff doesn't change, but the prices will change. The day change, the change for the day up here at the top will be changing day to day. And this is different from the printed reports. To access the printed reports, you go over to that highlighted oval here and go click on PDF reports. You'll get a drop-down menu, and you can choose the date that you want. And here's that PDF report. This is the, normally will come from the Value Line Investment Survey if it's a larger company. And these are the things, I've picked out 3 important things that I particularly like about the PDF reports that are not on the online report. And I've numbered them here. The next slide shows them. Right. That first one gives you projections into the future where they think some things will be in dollar amounts. So earnings per share. There's that second part was the annual rates. This is Value Line's projections on the percent growth in certain metrics. Now, the better investing tools for picking stocks, we have to make some judgment calls, and one of them is how fast, what's the growth rate for earnings per share. So this is a good place to look for that and get an idea of where you want, how you want to project. And the last thing here, number 3, this is in the bottom, on most of them, is on the bottom right corner. And this is, for me, I use this as a check on my projections. Right? It tells you some information on essentially how accurate Value Line has been in their projections in the past. Now, this one tells you, well, there's nothing really. They've had some, this particular company has had some COVID-related problems. So they're not doing any of these projections at the bottom. But in other companies, you'll have a number from 5 to 100. 100 is, they're the most reliable. Value Line, of all the companies Value Line follows, these are the ones they're most accurate with. They do not go with compare it to other companies, only with ones that they follow and make predictions on. Now that browse research feature searches through all of the value line products, not just the paper ones that you could get at the library before, the value line investment survey. That search also goes to the value line investment survey plus and the value line small and mid cap survey. Right. So now these PDFs don't look quite the same for all of the ones that come from the different surveys. I think I got one here. This is one from Evercore. It's a small one. You can see it looks a little different from the other one. It doesn't have that projection item over here. For all of those items, you see there's an earnings per share one, but it only goes out 1 year, 2 years, or the other ones from the investment survey go out 3 to 5 years. You see the annual rates. They don't do a projection. They give you historical ones down here, so that's a little different for these. And their growth persistence. Normally when the other ones would be down in the bottom, but for this, from the different types, it's up at the top. So you have to know what type of company it is, which product it comes from. It will look a little differently. Okay, let's continue. Now, you do have, they're showing here, when you go into Find Ideas, it tells you some of the other products and where things are coming from. So it tells you all of the investment survey, Survey Plus, Value Line 600, Value Line 900, Small Value Line Mid Cap Survey. That's where that browse research takes things from. You also have access to some other things here. I've particularly used this special situations report. You can see you also have a screener. You can get access to a screener here. I personally like the AAII screeners a little better, but you can screen on practically industries, the value line timeliness. So it's gives you a lot of variables to use for the screener. Let's concentrate here on the special situations report. When you click on that, here's what you get. They run about 16 pages. They have some model portfolios, an aggressive and conservative portfolio. They give new recommendations for each of those portfolios and some updates on the companies that they have in the portfolios. I found some interesting companies to do some further research on this, on the special situations. I've actually even purchased a few, not many, but it's a good place to find some ideas. All right. I want to go back a little bit. You can get industry reports, but you usually have to go into the investment survey, particular ones. They're a little harder to do otherwise. And I found Morningstar or S&P ones are usually a little more comprehensive. Other resources you can get at the library. You can go, again, business investing. You just scroll down farther down the page. And here are some of the other resources. So you can get archives of the Wall Street Journal from 1984 to the present, Harvard Business Review from 1922 to the present. I've actually used those too. Archive of Bloomberg Business Week, that doesn't come up to the present. Ends at 2000, as does a Forbes magazine and Fortune magazine archives. It ends. Lynda.com, which is an online learning platform. You have classes. And one that actually gives you a lot more resources available. There's a link for what's called Smart Investing at the library. And this is what you get when you go to Smart Investing. They have things to books on economics and finance. So again, the online other investment resources, they've given you the ones we were just talking about, that Morningstar, Standard & Poor's, and Value Line directly there. This is just one part of it. If you go on there, you would see even more of the resources there. So that's another thing to explore on the library. So that takes us, well, how do you get access? Well, you have to go to the library site. Okay, and you click, there are two ways. You want to click on Services in the main menu bar at the top, and this is the page you'll see. Then you want to choose your card type. You can get a free full library card or an instant e-card. The e-card gives you access only to their online services, and the full free library card gives you checkouts for books. And if you click one of those, here's the library card here. This is the application for the e-card. Now, e-cards are only available to, you have to live in Santa Clara County to get an e-card. All right, but you can get it very quickly, and you don't have to go to the library to pick it up. So, right, so you just fill in the information there. Now, if you want a full membership, you have to go for that. For the full membership, you actually have to pick up the card at a library branch. However, all you have to do is be a resident of the United States. Visit one of the branches, and you have to have some sort of proof of a U.S. mailing address. Then you can check out books and have access to all of the online services. And we're running a little ahead of schedule. I went a little fast. So do we have questions?
I have the only question I see is my own, because Russell, I wanted to remember that we should both tell the audience that there's a difference between what stars mean in Value Line from what stars mean in Morningstar and Standard & Poor's.
Yeah, Value Line doesn't use stars, they use numbers. And I'll go back.
Okay, they use numbers. That's what that's what I meant. Yeah.
And
So,
I'm going to go to the other one, TPI Composites. They have a timeliness factor, which tells you their estimate from it's rated 1 to 5. 1 is the best. And this is their estimate of how well it will do within the next 12 months.
Okay, and if you're looking at Morningstar, that would be 3 stars, telling you that at the current price, it's sort of a neutral investment. It's not in the sell range, it's not in the buy range.
Yeah, so Value Line, if you go into their education thing, Value Line does have an education thing on their site also. I didn't go over this. Yeah, so if you can look at the educational investment education, they'll give you education on how to use Value Line, what the stars mean, what the safety and timeliness rankings mean. They even go back and time test what the rankings were and how the actual things performed that were ranked that. It's been a while. It's probably about 15 or 20 years ago. They came up and saw that the ones ranked number 2 are actually outperforming the ones ranked number 1 for a while. So they had to go back and adjust how they do the rankings then. But you can see performance data for that if you go back to their things, to their educational part.
Yeah, you can see how my mind works because I automatically translate that 3 into 3 stars. But I find
their best rating is their best rating is a 1 for timeliness.
That's what my point. Yeah, my point was going to be, if you see a timeliness rating of 1, that's the best rating from Value Line. It means the next 6 to 12 months they expect this stock to do well. If you see a 1 rating in Morningstar, it's time to evaluate whether you should sell. Okay, so just going back among these different services, be careful not to make an assumption, which I find sometimes new people do. Oh, well, if it's a 2, it must be good. Well, which service are you in? You know, whether it's a
Yeah.
timeliness rating or 2 stars. So just watch out for the fact that in Standard Poor's reports, 5 or 5 stars is the best. In Morningstar, meaning buy. In Morningstar reports, 5 is the best, meaning buy. In Value Line, 1 is the best.
And the Value Line timeliness is compared to all of the other ones that Value Line follows, not the whole universe of all stocks.
Right, right. And I think the same is probably largely true for, well, no, it's not true for Morningstar because they give you a timeliness, they give you a star rating even for things they don't report
Well,
on in depth.
I happen to, well, since if there are other questions, I'm going to go, and I happen to have the library. Nope. Ah, there we go. This is the, you should be seeing, this is the actual library. I brought it in, so you can see, you can click on that. We can go to Value Line. I have to log in. And there's, I think you can see here are the other things you can get. Some of these, if you click on them, they will not be active because institutional memberships in Value Line don't have access to those. If you click Find Ideas, you can get to the screener, the special situations. I just wanted to get you an idea of what the screener looked like. And you can see all of these criteria. You can build your own with all of these criteria. Or you can use preset Value Line screens. And I see there are some questions coming up in the chat. Which of the 3 resources do you use the most? I think that depends on on the person. I use Value Line the most, but there are times
I use Morningstar the most.
Yeah. Though I have been known to, since I happen to have pretty good internet access, I've been known to have both Morningstar and Value Line open and at the same company at the same time while I do using the Better Investing stock evaluation. It's called the stock selection guide. So I sometimes have use both of them at the same time for one company.
I will generally check all 3 services before I buy something or even before I sell, because one service may cover a stock with an analyst report where another one doesn't. The other thing to maybe quickly mention here is the San Francisco library also has all 3 of these services: Value Line, Morningstar, and Standard & Poor's. So if you have a card with the San Francisco system, this presentation works pretty well for that too.
Yeah, just how to get them would be a little different.
Yeah, the login would be different, but the displays should be about the same. And if you have a brokerage account, which I'm assuming most of you do, check the research tab with your brokerage account, because they will often put Morningstar and Standard & Poor's analyst reports on there. You may not be able to get everything else, but they frequently allow their clients to see Morningstar and Standard & Poor's reports in the brokerage site. I've never seen a Value Line access on the brokerage account, though.
And the second part, second part of that question is, how do you use each resource? I mainly use Value Line to help with my individual stock analysis. Those 3 points I plotted out, so of where are earnings per share going to be in the future, an estimate. How is the earnings per share as a percent growth compounded growth going to be. That's used in our analysis tool. And then that last part on the price growth, persistence, and predictability of earnings, I use that as a check on my estimates, right? If my estimates are way off from what Value Line says, I usually lower my estimates. So that's how I use them. And I use Morningstar, the mutual funds, even though I don't invest in mutual funds. I use it to find ideas for especially small and mid caps. I search for a mutual fund that has been performing well in the small and mid cap space. And then I look at what things they've been buying, what's in their portfolio to see, look for ideas, especially in the small and mid cap range. Marion?
Yeah, all of those things I completely endorse and do myself. The other thing about Morningstar, I generally read the analyst report if there is one, looking for bad news or worries that the analyst has identified. Since it's generally a longer report than either of the other two services, the analyst is more likely to pick up on potential issues. So that's one reason why I generally will skim the analyst report. In addition to all the other things Russell mentioned.
Yeah, and I like to go, if nothing else, I like to go to the bulls and bears, say, for the Morningstar. You can see neither of us use the S&P as much. Part of that is because when they first redid their website, it was really difficult to find the reports. It wasn't as easy to find them, and I just got out of the habit of using them. And now that I've gone back and find that they've redesigned it a bit to make it's a little easier to find the reports, I'll probably go back and be looking for that. And they have some of the best industry reports, so I'll probably go back and be looking for industry reports on those.
Yeah, nobody matches S&P's industry reports. Those are really good. And difficulties using the site, I would definitely say it's harder. What I like on their reports is the business section, the business description section, because they'll give you a real long business description, which will tell you when they made acquisitions and when they divested and all kinds of things like that. So it's not longer than a page or anything, but it's fairly fast, fairly complete description of the business, more than you get from Morningstar or Value Line. So you can see why we like this library site. Different services give you a little bit of extra thing on one side, and once you learn how to travel between them, you can get a really pretty good picture of an investment you're looking at.
Yes, there was a short time during the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, where the library charged you if you were not inside their library district where they collect taxes. But it was $80, and I mean, it's $600 for Value Line, but that's just for the investment survey, and you get access to all of them. So that was a bargain. We have a next one. How far back in time can you go with the Value Line reports? Usually those go back 10 years is the standard on the PDF reports. Okay, another one. Value Line ratings used to have a lot of predictive power. Is that still true? The last time I checked, but it's been 5 or 6 years. Yes, but remember, the rating is only for the next 12 months. If you're looking at, you're going to be holding things for 4, 5, 6 years. I'm in an investment club, and we have one thing that we've held 19 years. So it may not be great for that, but there probably isn't anything else that is good at 19, 20 year predictive power. But for the short term, I'd have to check it for recent, but the last time I checked, yes, the ones rated 1 the group rated 1 tend to outperform the group rated 2 over the next 12 months. Though I have found a lot of good long-term things that were rated 3 that perform very well over 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, and I would say be careful of the 5s in Morningstar, because some stocks hit a 5, which is, hit a 1. I'm talking the wrong end of it. Some stocks hit no, I'm not. Some stocks hit a 5, which means consider buying, and stay there for years because they're so low priced. Well, they're low priced because nobody wants to buy them. So I found myself getting more wary of a 5 rating for Morningstar. I look more in the 4s and the 3s for new ideas. But even though 5 is supposedly the best, indicating a buy, I can't tell usually how long it's been a buy, and it can go on for a long, long time. Haynes brand is one that I think of. Some of the oil stocks, some of the oil refineries, oil equipment services went down to 5 and stayed there for years. So I'm a bit wary of 5 myself.
That reminds me, the ratings on the online value line report will change. They could change daily. They usually don't change that fast, but they can change before the PDF one. The PDF ones are only updated every 3 months, so they may have a change in the rating between then, and that will show up in the online report, and it will tell you whether it was if it was updated, upgraded, or downgraded since the last PDF report.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us for this presentation. We hope it met a need and that you'll easily be able to go back in and explore some of these topics that are of most interest to you.